Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Lipstick Leadership Legacy Podcast with JaneTaff the Sage and Deanna Vestal, your career catalyst. This week, we discuss a little bit about the DISC personality assessment and psychological safety. Jump in on our conversation. So you felt free to employ your strengths.
I felt free to employ my strengths.
That is awesome. Go on, girl. Go on.
Yes, and I think that is a significant difference from being concerned about how I'm being received based on this influence of memories of people making harsh and fast decisions about wanting to work with me or not, or wanting to be encouraged, and then also noticing the kind of leaders I attract and how people want to be told what to do. People really do like structure. I'm a people. I also like that. And some of us would like to contribute what their idea of that is. Others of us really like someone else to say first through 5 steps. And then we've got some folks that are a little bit more challenging for me to get along with, who have a very clear idea of what they'd like to see do and what they want to see me do in a structured situation. And I'm like, I really am concerned about being put into a category that you think looks good where my strengths really would not be employed, you know? And come to find out, folks just think that I'm a walking book of business that can throw a party at the drop of a hat. And I mean, it's like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm off the scene. When is the last time you've seen me, really? I'm off the scene.
Yeah.
So it's okay, though, because of my personality trait, I don't have to ask if you've seen me or not. I can straight up tell you I'm off the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's not actually going to be the best fit for me because I'm off the scene, rather than trying to make sure I'm getting you to say the answer. It's just completely different.
Yeah, instead of playing a game, even though we don't want to play games, we think that's what's expected of us, right? And I think where you are really realizing being forthcoming versus playing the what's expected from me game, because it doesn't work in our favor, none of us. Right? Especially if it's completely different from our core personality or our core strengths. Let's call it that, because many people don't understand personality to begin with. So let's call them core strengths. And when we are masking, we are only guessing. Our best guess of what people want from our behavior usually falls short. When if we are simply authentic and transparent with who we are, we tend to get better results in our interaction. Because now I don't have a mask on. I'm not trying to guess. So I'm usually pretty accurate with telling you my come from versus trying to figure out what you want my come from to be. Okay. Right? It's like too many layers for the brain.
And that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these parallels now more than ever, where, for example, coming from a sales background, every conversation, every team meeting is about building relationship. And guess what? It is completely the opposite of what in-depth personal introspection and true relationship building is. It is. And there are other things too in business where it's like, well, what is the bottom line? The bottom line in business is, did we make quota today? Have we the activities that we can run up the flagpole in our reports? Right. And the bottom line in relationships is, do I feel equitable? And am I contributing from a place of truth and authenticity?
Yeah. And strength.
And strength. Well said. Exactly. And these things, while both being very important in business, are not both very important in our new normal. In the new normal, we really have an opportunity through pure frustration, if that's where you are, if you were where I was, to really soften and take a look at maybe a different personality profile than what you're used to, and have that be analyzed so that you can find places in your life, your approach, and your thought process where you might be able to soften, where you might be able to bring some of that understanding and inclusivity, if that's what's important to you. You might be looking for that from the outside world at a time like this, or from other close relationships, but again, it's external to you. And with just this simple activity, you have this great gift of an internal dialogue that is inviting. It's an embrace and employs our strengths,
Yeah.
like naturally.
And it's a form of self-care,
It
right?
is.
I mean, you and I are really into this self-care thing, but one way to care for yourself is to know yourself. I think we do a lot of damage to our egos, our psyches, our sense of balance when we don't know ourselves. You know, I mean, think back when you were a teenager, the height of not knowing yourself, right? You're a child trapped in an adult's body, and you have, you think you have responsibilities and abilities, and you're not sure because you have this safety and cocoon of your parents' wishes and kind of their domain. And so you're at the height of your insecurity because you don't know yourself. You don't know yourself when you need to make independent decisions, because guess what? Even if your decisions blow up in your face, your parents are going to let you blow up your life. Most of us have parents who would say, now pull that back. Even if it's something as horrific as, I just wrecked the family car. Well, you're not on the hook 100% because your parents have your insurance. They might have a backup car. They can call somebody to help get that car towed. You usually have health insurance that you can go to the doctor and fix your broken arm that you just got yourself, right? You're under the cocoon, but true adulthood is all about these independence with responsibility that you may or may not have been ushered into a little bit at a time. Or you may have been somebody who you went from the full cocoon of your household to get out, pushed off the front porch, right? And, the explanation of how to live an independent life generally is not a conversation. It's more caught than taught.
You better preach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my son. He hurt himself this Sunday, right? He had an accident in the home, and he calls us and he said, I don't know where to go. And we said, all right, you have your medical card in your wallet. I know because you put it there the last time somebody asked you about it. So you go to the clinic up the street, right? And we walked him through, how do you take care of yourself while we're not there?
Oh my goodness.
And that's a really teeny tiny example, but can you imagine if he never had any incidences and he had to do this on his own? Like, who do I call? Where do I go? Well, you can always call us, absolutely, but in a crisis, sometimes you don't know who to call even. And crisis handled, but how often do we talk about those? The kids call it adulting now, which is such a funny term, but it's so appropriate. How do you know what you know as an adult? And when it comes to your personality, how do you know that you're that? You may feel it instinctively. You may feel it because your strengths were confirmed, or even worse and more appropriate, your weaknesses were confirmed. Ouch. And now you're walking wounded because maybe your strengths were not confirmed and only your weaknesses were confirmed. And you're walking around thinking, I can't do this and I can't do that, and I'm labeled as this, and how am I going to overcome that? What the pandemic did, and there's a silver lining in everything, what the stay-at-home order did, I hope for many people, was give you enough retreat to a location where you can think, right? Now you're not surrounded. If you turn off your computer and turn off your phone, or at least turn down the noise, you can actually find room to explore yourself, right? And that's self-care. Many people became traumatized because what was is no longer. But those who thrived within this environment, the grand pause, as it were, from normal. By the way, normal's not ever coming back. It's a new normal now. Many of us who went in and either, got into the self-discovery work for the first time ever, maybe you were convinced that a different version of you exists. Maybe you were convicted that the version you were employing was masking and not the true self. Or maybe you were just finally giving yourself compassion, right? Oh, this is who I am without reservation, without excuse. And it's okay. These are my strengths. Let's celebrate those and stop condemning those. And how can we take down the edginess of those parts that actually don't work in anybody's favor, including mine, right? We can get into that evaluation when you retreat away from the pressure. Unfortunately, many people turned toward the pressure and engaged in more pressure. That was
I absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I was going to bring that up because I love how you're saying what works when people are willing to retreat. And in many cases, folks were forced to because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you a question about the converse, which may have the same outcome or the same prescription to do this self-reflection. But what about for those of us who, when we were forced to go home, felt unsafe? What about those of us who have been the direct catalyst or the direct bridge for folks who found themselves in abusive relationships or in less than desirable environments financially? We've always been the catalyst or the bridge to assist people for help. And then now suddenly being that person, maybe you're the therapist who suddenly snapped and burnt out, or maybe you're the CEO who was very good at being in charge at work. Right. But when that was then coupled with the pressure of being at home and managing that and work.
Right.
Or maybe if you are someone who, like me, who just simply finally said, okay, to moving in with your boyfriend, and it absolutely blew up in my face because I was faced with myself in a different, unique way.
Yeah.
Same relationship,
different
environment, different pressures. And so I would like to ask you, with that little bit of context, how then, when you cannot retreat, there's nowhere left to go. Yeah. The whole world now has been encapsulated into the home environment.
Mm-hmm.
How then might focusing on our strengths or researching that, how might that work? And does it require a retreat in order to do that?
Yeah. I want to say, I feel this compassion about what you just said, the scenario that you just explained, because while I was able to come home and my reality changed from everything I love to do to great, I stay home, but I had this option in a loving, safe, nurturing, I have all the room, my kids are older environment. So I retreated, or I came home to a very, our environment was clicking, right? I didn't have to find the new speed of my household routine. I fully acknowledge that. And I see when chaos reigned, right, for others, you have to give yourself the time, right? I think too many people have this pressure in their minds about I have to, I have to, I have to. No, you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, first, let's make sure we're safe. Let's make sure that we can, all of our people that we are either designated to be around, or our family, or, kids came home, everything. Let's make sure we are checked in as a group of people now stuck in the same place in a small space, right? Let's get that in order. That's number one. Let's get our basic needs dealt with, because what you and I are proposing in this conversation are steps like 4 and 5 on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you can't jump there without the foundational first 3. So let's start there. I'm not trying to propose to somebody who does not have physical safety, right? You need to secure your physical safety. You can't be thinking about anything but securing your safety. I'm on the board of a domestic violence survivor organization. And as a domestic violence survivor myself, I know that need for safety is an occupation, a mental occupation that you can't move from until it's settled. And so, to all my boss babes out there who are handling their business but are not safe at home, I know that's something you have to handle. There is no such thing as success in one area without success in another area. That is truly an escape rather than success.
I really appreciate you sharing your personal experience, and that is where I'm coming from in this question now more than ever at this critical time. To, for those of us who, like, I'm a trauma-informed practitioner in the region. And so there are some steps. One of them is called ALGEE, ALGEE, for mental health first aid, right? This is
share what that means.
Oh, sure. Yeah, my pleasure. So it is a step for mental health first aiders to basically come up with an action plan on if you are going to help someone find their own assistance out of a mental health crisis or off the streets or into some form of psychological or housing safety, where you start by assessing the risk for either suicide or harm. But you listen. The L is to listen non-judgmentally, just continuing to ask, and then what? And how did that make you feel? And then what? And how did that make you feel? And to give reassurance and information rather than to make any kind of faces or exclamations like, no, oh, no, that must have been terrible. None of that, no. Instead, to be reassuring and provide maybe some resources, things to consider. To be encouraging is the E in ALGEE, to seek appropriate professional help. You start off with those resources when you're being reassuring, but then you also want to make the offer to maybe place a 3-line call or something like that. And then the final is ALGEE. That final E stands for encouraging people to find strength from within, at least making the offer to take a few cleansing breaths, at least making the offer to pray with someone if you know that their belief system would be open to that, and to have some other strategies in your back pocket to make sure that the person because those of us who are adults, we kind of know somewhere deep down inside of us what we need to do, but we need that encouragement rather than someone else telling us what to do.
Right. And, encouragement, not judgment.
Yes, encouragement, not judgment. And that is something I am so proud to provide, whether it is, I was a very solid member of the church for a long, long time. And my favorite ministry in the church is in prayer or in the bookstore where I can provide resources. And I'm also well known for being an advocate in these streets. So I assist in, psychological safety for people who work with the homeless, and psychological safety for people who work in workforce development. I have a national provider number for working with people when they come fresh out of prison and understanding their options and how to maybe promote themselves or market themselves truthfully in the workforce with a record. And in all of those environments, it brings me a sense of pride and contribution to society to be able to handle their traumas with dignity, to provide dignity in that situation. However, it's quite another story when COVID hits and now the practitioner becomes the person in need, the society member in need. Or when someone who can absolutely afford my services as an executive coach reveals to me the lack of safety in their own home or in their own psyche, like feeling like they're gonna snap. Mm-hmm. And even though you have these very specific, proven ways to address that, I wanted to ask you, from your place in the world and from your level of expertise at a time like this, for those of us who are smart, educated, God-fearing, if you will, I'm going to represent for my own beliefs, as well as seeming to have it all together, who can very easily have a conversation about the higher levels of the pyramid and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but have almost no power or perceived power and no clue of what to do first or next when we find our own selves in a position of psychological harm or the probability of whatever is the opposite of safety in the home.
Yeah. Yeah. Harm thrives in secret. Harm thrives in secret. So people who want to harm themselves generally don't tell other people. People who are in domestic violence situations generally don't tell other people. I know because I've been part of both of those scenarios. But the second I told someone who already loved me, the second I told a trusted friend, the second I told anybody was the second that started to unravel. The strength of it started to unravel because now two people are able to think through. One of us, me, was not clear, but the other person who's not in immediate danger or any danger at all can give some encouragement, can give some acceptance, can give some listening. I love your algae analogy. It's so appropriate because all of those things can begin to happen, and it starts with you. You have to be willing to take that first scary step. There is no other alternative because someone can't pull it out of you. Because you have spent however long you've been holding this in secret. Nobody can guess, nobody can pull. Everybody is involved in their own lives, right? And it has nothing to do with their love, care, and affection for you, but it has everything to do with attention of the moment. And the only way to bring attention to it is to call it out. Mm. To call a girlfriend and say, I don't know that I want to go back home after I buy these groceries. I'm already out, girl. Can you come talk to me? I need to tell you something very important. Can you find a way to bring another person into that environment for you, not to be in the middle of the situation, but your support person? I know that came to me in a very odd way. I used to smoke cigarettes when the abuse, this was 25 years ago, um, when I was in the height of my very abusive relationship. I was scared all the time, scared to leave, scared to stay, all those things that women go through. And I was smoking cigarettes with this other gal who became a friend to me. And one day I couldn't take it anymore. And I used to, and I know this is a behavior for other women in violent situations where they would go to the bathroom. You're a regular person, just a regular person who holds a full-time job, has kids, volunteers, doing all those things, but this very big secret you have. And so just like you, if you're currently in that situation, I used to go to the bathroom in my job and cry because the weight was on my shoulders and my heart hurt. How did I choose this for myself? And how do I continue to function like nothing's happening? Right? And I guess I didn't clean myself up well enough when we went out to smoke our cigarette for that time. And she asked me, "Hey, are you okay?" And the dam broke because I was not okay. There was nothing about me that was okay. And that simple concern. And I always knew she was my friend, but I didn't know how do you bring up that I'm being abused? I know it sounds so far-fetched to someone who's never experienced this, but it is an overwhelming sense of a secret, right? And so I accidentally, right? Because I wasn't planning to tell anybody, I accidentally let it all out. And that was the beginning of getting out. The beginning of getting out, because she said, you know, life can be better than this. She wasn't telling me to get out of there. She reminded me that there is an alternative to the life I'm choosing to continue to live. And she gave me hope, and she gave me the pledge of her friendship. I'm here every day. You know, I'm right here to hear you. You know, tell me about your bad days when things come up. You don't have to cry I told her all of it. You don't have to cry in the bathroom. Cry with me. You know,
That's so
it's
sweet.
such a relief that it began my way out. It really did. It really, really did. I cannot thank Dina enough. She doesn't know how much, because, you know, we lost touch over the years. But I cannot thank her enough for being that first friend who was willing to simply friend me through it, right? And that's what I encourage anybody going through. Find a friend.
Step one,
Yeah.
do your step one. And if you have your step one, if you haven't yet shared with anyone else, I would absolutely encourage any of us to go ahead and reach out, do a Google search. You don't have to be like other people you think are in this situation,
Right.
because the training is still significant. And what you got from your friend, which was not trained, is the same thing you would get from someone who is trained. And maybe that's that moment of clarity, that moment of relief, that you are not alone in this moment.
Right.
And
Right.
if you have taken, because that catalyst, what can happen from a moment of peace, or what can happen from a moment of consolation,
Yeah.
is, you know, it's in the experience.
Yeah.
You have to experience it in order to know the treasure of it.
Yeah.
And if you're someone who has gone past that first step and you're still blaming yourself or holding yourself accountable for why things haven't changed yet, and you realize that you're in the middle of COVID, or maybe you're not financially safe to get out, and maybe you're not even psychologically safe to tell anyone else, or you've told someone and now you're all caught up in the vortex of what that means now that you've told someone else.
Right. The
What
shame.
might this step? Shame. Say it out loud.
Yeah.
Let's use the language of the truth. That's exactly what happens. And it's a cycle. And it becomes so cyclical that it's like a vortex. You can't even see the probabilities outside of that. Shame.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, and for where we are in society and history and in our personal and professional relationships, I am so glad we can just talk about it for a minute.
Yeah.
And help other people who are our tribe, who are within the sound of our voice, to know the steps. Just step one, and then maybe step 1A, where it got better for a second, but then it's almost worse.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because sometimes letting the secret out brings chaos to your mind, because the secret kept everything under, right? Now you have someone concerned for you, and now you can't hold back the tears that you're holding back all those, years or what have you. That's what happened to me. I felt like I was breaking. And, like any semblance of control was broken because someone else knew, and I couldn't take it back, and I wanted to be mad at myself. This is really true. This can really happen. Now, let's back up for those of us who listen to us who aren't at this extreme. Maybe the shame is around because of COVID, you became underemployed or laid off. And now you have you have a financial situation that can bring shame too. That can bring all kinds of chaos to your life as well. So let's not forget that it can happen on so many levels. We're talking about a really deep level, but there's other levels that will throw us into shame and chaos. And not the least of which is losing your job, right? Not most of us are not set up to lose our jobs. And it's a very, very difficult impact on the family. Or if you are partnered and you both lost your jobs in COVID, or the business you were running that brought in all that income collapsed because of COVID rules. We understand that. We had to come home too. Our businesses contracted too. I can say that with full honesty. My business contracted to, what I can do on a screen when I'm really good in person, right? And we had to deal with that.
Yes.
We have to deal with that. But again, step one is still saying it out loud.
Yes.
Saying it out loud to someone you know already cares and loves you.
Yes.
Everybody has that one person, right? I don't care who you are. You always have that one person. And if you wait long enough, if you think your current circle does not have that one person, if you wait long enough, that person will show up. I guarantee it. I do.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I love your faith in that. And I also know that the 211, if you're in the Sacramento,
yes,
you can really utilize the internet. If you can hear our voice, then you have access to the internet.
Yeah.
So those strangers who are licensed to provide this information anonymously and for free could be the family member that you need in lieu of a trusted friend or family member.
Yeah.
And
thank you for saying that.
It is that important, yes. And that could be the placeholder for someone who is on the way, as you guarantee, because the more you are willing to do what's scarier than what you're already doing, then people will show up to help. Guides, mentors, friends, if you've never had a true friend or don't remember having one, or if in your shame you're remembering all of the great relationships you destroyed, and now you don't feel worthy of a solid friendship, well, then if you can afford it, you might have to pay for it. So go ahead and call a counselor or a therapist. Right. And if not, and you need even more anonymity, you don't have to be poor, broke, destitute, or any of the things you think make you overqualified to contact a crisis helpline.
Yeah. I am so, so glad you said that, because sometimes it is easy to unburden yourself with someone you consider a stranger. Sometimes it is too close to have a friend, a family member, carry your weight with you, right? Sometimes it is easier to begin the unlocking and unloading with someone who is not connected to you at all. So thank you for bringing up 211, because that is a resource we put in here in our community, and in many communities have this, so that no one ever has to feel alone. And it's so very important to have this conversation right now, because in essence, we're talking about, I know, Deanna, you and I have talked in many different ways about psychological safety. And as we are talking and discussing today, it's really about another level of psychological safety. And you may not believe you have people who love you enough to hear this and can, carry the burden with you. That's okay. That happens to all of us. Who I talked to was not somebody who I felt really loved me at that point. I mean, we were cigarette buddies. We were break buddies, right? She was what I would consider, if I was really thinking about it, before she asked about my well-being, we were casual friends. We were just work friends. But she broke the dam open and gave me permission to be authentic and transparent with her. When she asked me sincerely, you could tell by the tone of her voice and the look in her face that she really wanted to know what was going on. I mean, what's really going on, right? And I couldn't help myself at that point. It was just too much. It was overflowing and it needed to go somewhere. And many of us are in that overflow state, and we don't have that person. So feel free to reach out to 211. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's your training 100% coming out, girl. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yes, absolutely. And it is relevant today because of where we are economically and historically, and because you and I have really we've gone back to our roots professionally and started highlighting the benefits of a personality assessment, a strengths assessment, and how that might benefit or impact the team. And if you're in leadership and you are super busy, maybe instead of COVID making you have less finances, you have now blossomed financially. And, there might even be some guilt or shame around doing so well while people that you love and care about and everyone in the world not doing as well. Or you may have never had the chance to retreat because you've been working in an industry that was provided an essential service.
Yeah.
And so you've not only become more busy, but you're busy and engaging with other humans while the rest of the world is in quarantine. That comes with a whole nother layer of fear.
And let's talk about that woman who's thriving and still approaching that burnout, that, and now she feels that no girlfriend wants to listen to her thriving, but talk about how she's struggling.
Yes.
Right? Because she's not in financial distress. She's not in physical duress. She is thriving by all accounts of what we consider thriving in this current environment. And now she feels ashamed that despite all that, I'm having this.
Yes.
Kind of that anger at yourself that, wait a minute, I'm okay, but I'm not okay.
Absolutely. And that is where in our case, the DISC personality assessment is invaluable. It's that same algae assessment, but for the thriving professional. Yes, I know it is a secret of another kind, but it comes with secrecy and shame and concern and a very thin line, all the same. Yeah. And in that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, psychological safety is paramount.
Right.
So for those of us who love listening to us, and for your Me Too story, many leaders are also volunteers or mentors and contributors to the community, we give back because we know where we've come from.
Right.
And sometimes while thriving, depending on what that looks like to you,
Yeah.
there are hidden pressures and secrets around what the other side of that looks like, because it doesn't seem like you have the right to share.
Yeah, talk about that. I mean, we were talking about this just a few days ago about the toxic idea of a strong woman label. Because if you are labeled a strong woman, can you have, psychological issues? Are you allowed to have burnout and overwhelm? Usually not. That's like, you're not allowed because you're a strong woman. You're handling your business, your children, your life. When isn't that essentially taking away the fact that she still has feelings despite her current ability to maintain what she has chosen to be in her life? I really began to have some aversion to the label strong woman because it almost takes away your ability to be vulnerable, to experience all the facets of feeling and experience, both the strength and the occasional weakness, right? It took away some parts of all the facets of me, or it made me have to mask those vulnerable parts of me. What do you think about that? Because we kind of started that conversation a few days ago, and I was curious just what you think about that.
I think that it is a critical time in our environment, in history. It now is the time to take a moment, pause, breathe. In the mask, having a mask is okay.
Yeah.
Tearing it, being frightened to unzip it or have it ripped off is okay. There is a value to the moment before anything happens. And in our society, and I can speak for myself, in our society, there is a conditioning around avoiding pain. Don't look at me. I'm not right. Or being exposed.
Yeah.
And having the chance to, if you do need to avoid that moment for another moment, there's an umbrella for you in the deep dive of self-discovery, because it starts with an assessment. You get to take a look. Everyone takes assessments all over the social media sites. If you still read magazines, there's always an assessment of some kind in there. It's a safe place to explore. If you have a mask, what is the mask? What are you projecting to others? And why? Why are you there? What are you hiding?
Yeah. And a skilled practitioner really will dive into what is that mask? What is the difference between what you think people expect from you versus what you have inside to give that as a value?
And
right?
that's the call to action. We are here. As a professional, whether you are feeling alone or whether you're feeling burnt out, you do have what it takes to come out of that, to blossom and thrive. And we are here to help. We are here to, one, provide a safe place for you to be okay. It's okay to be extremely successful and in pain and have secrets. It's okay to be, let's say you are in an interracial relationship with interracial children, and you still are concerned about the biases you have on either side of the nationality spectrum. And, that just doesn't seem right, because here you are raising interracial children. You should have it all together. We've got you on the shoulds. You have a safe place to should all over yourself. and then have trusted resources, trusted business partners who will then assist after the unraveling back your strength from a language that is already inside of you. We speak the language of personality, the language of strength.
Yeah.
And so we can assist you in recrafting who you are, as we have done for ourselves and with each other over and time again. Thankfully.
Yeah. And the process is something you just have to lean into, right? I mean, there's so much of this work that goes in layers, and you want to work on first the what is it? You know, we don't try to fix anything. We just want to know what the parts are. It's kind of like my son loved Legos, right? And you'd buy this, 250 piece set, and first you need to figure out what pieces are here, right? Before you start clicking things together. And that's exactly what we encourage people to do. Look at what is without judgment.
Yes. Let's take a look. Can we share the screen and take a look at just a high level viewpoint of the personality system?
Let's see here if I can do that. I can scroll it. Let me try. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of this information, this is very, very high level disc information. And this is only one of many, but this is the one that I am an expert in. One of many assessments that helps determine the facets of your strengths, challenges. The additional features in this is, what are your greatest fears and what are your greatest assets in working with others? What do you have of value? And that's really, really important that you understand that, because most people, when you don't understand your value, you tend to exhibit all kinds of behaviors that make you more ashamed rather than thriving in that environment. And so, like for instance, both, and I think I can say this openly, right? Deanna and I are both on this side of the quadrant. So there are 4. Let's go through real quick. The D, the dominant driver, and the I, influencing and inspiring, and then the S, because it goes clockwise. The S is stable and steady, and C is compliant and correct. So just looking at the categories, right? Just look at the categories and think, which one of these characteristics do I have right now? Even if you were to think off the top of my head, right? And what's nice about a quadrant is this. Since I am an I, the person I will probably be in most conflict with is my opposite, not this guy who's next door, but the person who is completely opposite from me, and that is here in the compliant or correct, because I'm kind of inspirational, I am verbal. This individual is nonverbal and detail-oriented, totally incompatible with who I am naturally. But guess what? And Deanna knows this. I'm married to that guy. I'm married to this very high C personality. And this is where the magic is. Why am I married to him, and why have we stayed together for the last 25 years? Because we've learned how to mesh, not clash. And it's so important to learn that. I need my opposite because he sees things I don't see. He does things and thinks about things in ways I don't. So guess what? No gaps in our lives because we think in each other's gaps. And Deanna, you're laughing. You're laughing because you know this about us, right?
That's absolutely right. And when you're looking at any of these assessments at the high level, especially for those of us who've been trained, right? We've had trainings like this for professional development that were sponsored by work. It's like, and then what? How does that then turn into a thriving relationship? Did you guys take this test 25 years ago? And the bottom line is this.
The answer is yes. We did.
Exactly. And without a practitioner, though, to explain how to communicate through the strengths, having even a snapshot is nice. At least it's a point of interest, and there's something significant there. The fact that even those of us who know each other very well, I know myself very, very well, and yet when I see something in a quadrant like that, I'm looking for which one is most like me, right?
Yeah.
And when I find that, I'm like, huh. So find your point of interest.
Right.
If you like that kind of thing, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And then start to look at what level of reward would you like your life to be versus what level of reward are you currently experiencing. That's where having a practitioner, working with a professional,
Right.
and then becoming the practitioner of self,
Yes,
is invaluable. When you know how to read the language of your thoughts and of the people you care about most,
yeah,
it really assists in being able to make those kind of contracts with each other that of what respect is. Let's go ahead and hammer out some of these very uncomfortable realities in our relationship so that we can create a bond
right.
for thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I really want to jump on something you said that was so important. If we're talking about especially a love relationship, it is an agreement. Have you slowed down enough in your relationship to make time for agreements, right? As adults, it's almost like you come together and there's very little conversation about who I am and who you are and who we are, right? We spend a lot of time defending our own nature.
We defend our own nature, and we are so certain that we know the other person until, why try?
Until you don't.
Really, because the reality is that in many cases, their behavior towards you is a reflection of your past behavior towards them, and not as much a reflection of who they would be if you were just different,
Right. Exactly. And we spend all this time because of personality, past experience, that could be highly negative, like mine was, judging each other for our strengths. See, this is the thing. When you recognize people for their strengths, you tend to work with. But when you see their strengths, even though all things being the same, you recognize their strengths and you label it as weakness. Here, you label it as weakness. Of course, you can only respond with annoyance because the label in your mind and the mindset filter is different is annoying. Different is annoying. But why do they say opposites attract? Because we are looking. Do you know that there is a biological reason why opposites attract?
It's magnetism, right?
There is something I read, gosh, I read all the time. And so I'm seeing all these crazy articles. But the reason why opposites attract is it's biological. We are looking to genetically fill in that which we don't have so that our offspring we produce is stronger. It has twice as many talents as we embody individually. So scientifically, we are actually attracted to our opposite so that they fill in the genetic code for us to have a stronger baby. Amazing work. And it's annoying. It's annoying to be attracted to your opposite because we label their oppositeness as other and different and annoying. And I can tell you, my husband, me being a high extrovert and him being an introvert used to be annoying. It's like, why don't you talk to me? What are you thinking? I'm running after him and he's trying to find a safe place to hide, right? And when we make decisions, I like to make quick decisions because I feel it in my body. What's the right thing to do? I'm very intuitive and he has to think because logic is a value in his thought process.
Yeah.
And he thought me making snap decisions, even though we concluded the same decisions, but because I came to it faster, it was of little value.
I can see that.
It was of little value when we first got together because, you know, anything that you take time on is more valuable, right? Right? That was how he was raised. And for me, if it's right, it's right. You feel it in your bones, you know? And those are two very small examples of how your opposite who's meant for you, you could reject and call crazy, right? So
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's, you know, I love my own because you know, like they say, I'm not just somebody who studies this. I'm the club president, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So when you get into this work, and this is how we started on this path, when you get into this work, it feels like chaos because all of a sudden you are seeing yourself in multiple facets that you didn't experience before. And you are now reevaluating the people around you who you have made snap judgments of before. And every interaction now has a different part of your brain engaged.
Yes.
And so it feels chaotic because all this new information with old data comes into play.
Yes.
Right? New evaluation with old data. And allow the process to happen. Allow it. Almost back burner all that. You know, you learn the information, then you back burner it. Because I will tell you, and many people know this, your subconscious works on everything 24 hours a day, but your consciousness can only focus on so much information at any one time. But your subconscious works 24 hours a day in your dreams, in your sleep, when you're awake, when you're driving, when you're showering, always working to help you resolve that new information with the old experience.
That's right.
And that's how, you know, I mean, that's how you have aha moments at the oddest times, like when you're gardening, you know, or when you're getting a glass of water, all of a sudden you've solved a problem because you burnered it.
Yes.
Right? So even though it feels like psychological chaos when you get some new information, especially something as deep and far-reaching as personality information, don't always have it in the forefront of your mind. Let the larger part of your consciousness or subconscious work on it for you. You know, yes. I had to, and I know you and I have discussed this, I've had to walk away from the focused intensity, so that my heart, mind, soul, spirit could work on it together.
Yes.
Right? Because when I'm focused on something, that's just one part. You have other parts that want to play. Right? So yeah, I got a little excited, Deanna. I mean,
well, it's because we really focused on steps 1 and 2, right? You know, in terms of psychological safety. But now we are actually demonstrating how the ball gets rolling and how personal expansion takes place, and then it becomes exciting. Then it becomes a conversation. Then, you know, movement starts to happen, and all of that is made more probable and most enjoyable with assistance. Yes. And that's where we come in. Yes. And so if this is a call to action, this is a call to action for those of us who are leaders, those of us who feel less than engaged right now. You might be overly engaged and feeling alone. And for those of us who are feeling determined with a question mark, I know I want to create a culture in my home or my business of X. Mm-hmm. If you're determined to do that and have not entirely clearly defined what that is, contact us through the Lipstick Leadership Legacy Community or individually, because each of us can be found on LinkedIn, on our website, right? And let's work on this together, because in real life, it takes the story. It's the experience of what you've been through. And then it's the experience of what this process is that actually makes it employable. Once we start gathering together and really sharing with each other, the growth becomes exponential.
Yeah, and link up. What we're saying and suggesting to you is we never have to be alone. We never have to be alone in crisis. We never have to be alone when we simply want shift. Link up. It doesn't always have to be us, but since you're listening to us, it might as well be us. We want to link up. We want to encourage you to link up. And we are so glad you tuned into our, not so casual, because we get all excited, but we love having these conversations. We eat, drink, and sleep this stuff. And that's why it just flows. And we want to help you begin to flow in your life, right? And so we love that you joined us for this part of our dialogue. This is JaneTaff, the Sage.
And Deanna Vestal, your career catalyst.
We'll talk to you next time.